All right, let's get into it. Today, we're talking about our digital lives. I mean, think about it. The internet is so wrapped up in everything we do, we barely even stop to think about how much it's actually, well, changing us. No, really, just stop and think for a sec. How you get your news, how you chat with your friends, how you buy stuff, it's all completely different than it was, say, 10 years ago, right? It's a whole new world. And you know what? We're about to put some real numbers on that feeling.
So, for this explainer, we're digging into this huge new study from Germany's Allensbach Institute. And yeah, the data itself is German, but trust me, the trends, they're happening everywhere. You're going to see stuff that reflects what's going on in all of our lives, for sure.
Okay, first things first. Let's talk about who's online and who's not. We all kind of assume it's just about age, old versus young. But the data shows it's way more complicated than that.
So, yeah, age is obviously the first piece of the puzzle. For anyone under 30, it's basically 99%. Everyone's online. It's still super high for the 50 to 69 crowd at 93%. But then, look at that cliff dive. For folks 70 and over, it just plummets to 43%. That means more than half of seniors are still living in a world that's pretty much analog.
But here's the thing. It's not just about how old you are. This is the other side of that coin. Your socioeconomic status, your income, your education, they play a huge role. You see, 76% of people in high-status groups are online, but that drops all the way down to just 51% for the lowest socioeconomic groups. We're talking about a massive 25-point difference here.
And this is why that gap really, really matters. Think about it. As governments, healthcare, all these essential services move to be digital only, they're basically running the risk of leaving huge groups of people behind. The elderly, the less well-off. They're getting locked out of really important parts of modern life.
All right, next up, let's talk about news. The digital shift has completely torn up the rulebook for how we get information. I mean, the whole concept of news has changed. It's gone from being something you tune in for at 6 p.m., appointment viewing, to something that's just kind of always there in the background. Ambient.
Okay, let's dive into this timeline, because it shows this absolutely wild reversal. It wasn't that long ago, back in 2004, when TV was king. It was the way people got info. But by 2016, boom! The internet had totally flipped the script and taken the lead. And now, you can see the internet's lead is just massive, and it's still climbing, while TV's role as our main source just keeps shrinking.
So if we take a snapshot of how people got their news, like just yesterday, the picture is really all over the place. Only about a fifth of people are still relying only on classic media, TV, print. The biggest slice of the pie, 37%, is doing a mix of both old and new, and almost a quarter are purely online. But maybe the most shocking thing? Nearly 1 in 5 people didn't get any news about current events at all.
But hold on. Even for the people who are getting their news online, there's a huge catch. And get this. The study found that a staggering 62% of people who see political news online, they just read the headlines.
That's it.
Our level of engagement is getting incredibly shallow.
And that leads us perfectly into our next big topic. I mean, if the traditional news companies are losing their grip, who's filling that space? Well, the answer, more and more, is just individual people that we decide to follow.
When you look at social media, you see that the whole flow of information is really driven by our relationships, not by some editor in a newsroom. Check this out. The #1 way people see news is from their friends and contacts. That's a huge chunk of what they see. Posts coming directly from actual news pages? That's a distant second.
Now, what's really fascinating here is the massive difference between what younger people follow and what the general population is interested in. For folks under 30, it's all about music, entertainment, comedy, beauty. Politics, it's way down the list at just 9%. But for everyone else, politics is a top interest at 22%. It's like we're looking at two totally separate information universes existing at the same time.
And all of this points to a much deeper shift in our culture. There's this fantastic German word for it, Zeitautonomie. It basically means time autonomy, and it's this incredibly powerful drive we all have now to be the master of our own time, our own schedule.
And you see this shift from rigid schedules to on-demand absolutely everywhere. Just think about how we communicate.
The phone call, which demands your attention right now, is losing out to messaging, which lets you reply whenever you want. It's the exact same story with media. That old idea of appointment TV, where you had to be on the couch at 8 p.m. sharp, it feels so restrictive now, in a world where we can stream anything, anytime we want to be in control.
So, look, this isn't just about us liking streaming more than cable or texting more than calling. It's deeper. It's a fundamental rewiring of what we expect. We now demand the freedom to engage with everything, media, people, services, on our own terms and on our own clock.
Okay, finally, let's look at how all this affects the world of shopping. We all know online shopping has just exploded, right? But the real story behind those huge numbers? It's probably not what you're thinking. So, at first glance, the trend looks pretty straightforward. It seems like a simple story of insane growth. Just a decade ago, a huge chunk of the population had never bought a single thing online. And as you can see, that number of non-buyers has just been shrinking and shrinking year after year. Looks like a total runaway success, doesn't it?
Well, not so fast. Because despite that massive growth and the number of people clicking that Buy Now button, only 20% of the population actually calls themselves enthusiastic online shoppers. Just 1 out of every 5 people.
And what's even crazier is where the growth in this tiny group of enthusiasts is coming from. It's not just the young, wealthy, tech-savvy people you'd expect. The growth is actually fastest among women, people over 50, and folks in those lower and middle-income groups.
So the really crucial point here is the huge gap between just doing something and actually loving it. Yeah, a majority of us shop online now, but most of us are doing it because we have to or because it's convenient, not because we're passionate about the experience. And that's a really important distinction for any business to get their head around. And all of this leaves us with one final, very big question. We've seen there's a digital divide splitting us by age and by income. We've seen our sources of information are fragmented and our engagement is shallow. We're following different people who are interested in completely different things. So if we're all increasingly living inside our own personalized, on-demand digital bubbles, what happens to the idea of a shared reality, a shared culture? It's something we all really need to think about.
Thanks for tuning in.